Hey guys, how you doing? This is Andrew Sims with the Sims Consulting Group, and today we're going to talk about considering the source. Basically, who has your ear and what are they saying, right? In this generation, man, we have things like the internet, right? Social media, YouTube. I'm taking advantage of some of these platforms myself, man. So it's not to talk bad about them, but with platforms gives a lot of people the opportunity to share opinions that may not be proven, man. There's just things that that they promote gimmicks, or they're trying to give you shortcuts and things like that that are not really going to give you the sustainability or help you build something that is going to be sustainable long term, right? So you have to always consider the source when it comes to taking advice on the internet, and that's just not in business. That's in life, right? When you talk about, like, think about the vaccinations, right, or the last presidential election, or anything that we've been going through in modern history, right? There's always going to be a certain amount of disinformation out there, right? There's always going to be somebody that has an agenda, a motive, and things like that to try to sway you one way or the other. And you have to be able to recognize the fact from fiction. You have to be able to recognize the truth from the lie. And sometimes that takes work, man. And a lot of things always are going to, some things that are lies do present themselves in a way that's very palatable, right? A good lie is even based somewhere in a little bit of truth, right? But it's exacerbated, or it's manipulated to make it fit a certain narrative. So you have to be careful when you're moving through this internet about who you give your ear to. Specifically, we're talking about business, but in life, make sure you're listening to qualified sources when it comes to certain topics, right? Any topic for the matter, right? If you're talking about a person when it comes to business, then they should have some results. They should have some. It's not always about the education. I believe in education, right? I went to school. I got the MBAs, the PMPs, and all of those things with the letters and all that stuff, right? The ABAs and all of that stuff. But it's not always just about that. It's do you understand something enough to be able to then take that information and give it out to the general public in a way that they can understand it, right? Are you an authority on the subject at hand, or are you just spitting out your opinions? A lot of times people get on these platforms, they really just give you opinions. It's not really based in traditional business wisdom. It's not really based in sustainability. It's, hey man, this is what I feel, or this is what I believe. And that always has to be taken with a grain of salt. So as you go through life, as you go through this process of building your business, or building your career, or building your family, or really just making really good sound decisions, make sure you consider the source, right? Who has your ear and what are they saying? Make sure you're considering and you're taking a hard look at the people that you let pour into your life, whether it's spiritually, whether it's mentally through education, whether it's emotionally when it comes to music. Make sure you understand who's actually pouring into your life. So let's get into these scriptures, right? It's Proverbs, my favorite book of the Bible. It's Proverbs chapter 11, verse 14. It says, "Where there is no guidance, a people fall, but in abundance of counselors there is safety." Why is that true, man? Where there is no guidance, people fall. I think we could all kind of, in some ways see that in our own lives. When you have a community that doesn't really have leadership, that community really doesn't stand a chance when it comes to competing or being competitive in this global marketplace, right? So you want to be able to understand that, hey, man, I need some guidance, right? It's nothing wrong. A lot of people say, man, why do I need a coach? Well, there are going to be people in life that are further along than you, that have done the legwork to an extent that you don't have to necessarily go through the pitfalls or the issues and things like that they went to. They can shorten your process between where you are and what success looks like to you, right? So it's always good to have a coach, but just in life, we need mentors, we need big brothers, we need fathers, we need guidance, because we haven't done this before, right? Life is something that you only do once. So, if you're a 30-year-old man, there's a lot of wisdom in having somebody 35, 40 be able to share some things with you if they're in the right position to. You always got to consider the source. They must be a person that you don't mind, being mentored by, or modeling in some way, shape, form, or fashion, right? But you always want to be able to have somebody that's ahead of you and somebody's behind you. Like we say in the church, right? Every Paul needs a Timothy, and every Timothy needs a Paul. We always need somebody that's going to pour into us, specifically, especially in a business sense. So don't feel like you're not as accomplished because you have a coach. Great successful people have coaches. They're always you're going to need something. You're going to need to rub shoulders with somebody that thinks in the same manner, as going in the same direction, right? The Bible says iron sharpens iron. So it's not something that you need to feel less than, but it's always good in your career to have somebody coaching you along the way. Not just it doesn't have to be me, but I'm telling you experientially, it's always good to have a coach and somebody that's going to lead you through the process or help you through the process, right? So now let's go to Proverbs. So that was Proverbs chapter 11 verse 14. So now let's go to Proverbs chapter 24 verse 6. It says, "For by wise guidance you can wage your war, and in abundance of counselors there is victory." I'm gonna read that one more time. It says, "For by wise guidance you can wage your war, and in abundance of counselors there is victory." I'm gonna read it one more time because I stumbled a little bit. It says, Proverbs chapter 24, verse 6, it says, "For by wise guidance you can wage your war, and in abundance of counselors there is victory." Part of the way we approach business is similar to the way we approach war as a nation, right? You want to assess your opponent. You want to assess your capabilities. You want to know what your strong suits are. You want to know what you bring to the table. You want to know what their strong suits are. You want to know, can you actually defeat this opponent before you go to war? And the same thing is true in business. Remember, we talked about just last week, right? Counting the cost. I don't know if that was Sunday or last week, but we just talked about counting the cost. And part of that process is you have other counselors that are helping you, an accountant, for if you will, right, to make sure that you have what it takes in order to complete the job or complete the process, to make sure that you're not missing something, right? So it's always better to have the right set of eyes. It's not just a set of eyes. A lot of people say a second set of eyes, but those eyes have to be quality, and they have to know what they're looking for, and they have to be able to decipher what they're looking at. So you want to make sure that you have a multitude of counselors, and I don't, for a multitude, that can mean two. That can mean one or two, right? Just some people to rub shoulders with and run your ideas past, right? You know, whether it's your spouse or somebody, man, to say, hey, does this make sense? Am I looking at this? Did I cover all my bases? Did I cross my T's and did I dot my I's? And it says you can wage your war, and there's victory in the end of having multiple counselors, right? Because they're able to see things that you may overlook. In the course of running a business for 40 hours a week, it's tough to see everything, right? TD Jakes talked about a 360 view, where if you have a multi-layer company, right? You got your accounting, you got your sales, you got your HR, you got your product fulfillment, right? All of these groups have a narrow view of what the company's supposed to do when it comes to their purview. Accountants are thinking about the financials, right? You have your sales team are thinking about making sales. Your HR department is thinking about the paperwork, making sure things are running smooth, the things like that. But you as the owner, you got to see 360, and seeing 360 means you have to look at the big picture, right? You're a big picture thinker when you're in the driver's seat, when you're the boss or whatever they like to term it. Excuse me, nowadays. You're a 360 or a big picture person when the company gets to a certain level, right? So you need to have other people that you can bring into it that are experts in those areas to give you the information you need in order to make an informed decision. Because if not, in a lot of areas, you're shooting blind, or you're shooting based on a limited amount of data or a limited amount of information from that specific section. And maybe you need more detail, or maybe there's something that's pressing that because you're up here with the 360 view, you don't see down there in that little 20 view, right? So it's always good to have wise counsel. Don't despise having somebody that could guide you and that can consult you along the way, man. Business consultants are important. That's why Fortune 500 companies keep them on retainer. They have companies of business consultants that are on retainer because these are experts. Don't think that because you're a small entrepreneur or you're a small business or you're a startup that you're not at the level where you need consultants. Well, you are. All businesses need to consult the experts at their area, and it may not be, just being you don't necessarily have to be paying all kinds of money, because a lot of people think consultant, they think a pretty hefty bill, and in some cases that's completely accurate. Things cost a lot of money, but where you are, you need a consultant to help you from where you are to where to get to the next step, right? Because profit comes from doing the right thing at the right time, the right way. That's where profit comes from, right? Doing the right thing at the right time, the right way, and you strike gold. But you don't get there if you don't know what the right thing is, or you don't know how to really pick out the right time, and you really don't understand the process, so you don't know the right way. Consider your source in everything you do, man. When we were in college, that was the most important thing, right? Who was your sources? And the teachers would scrutinize the sources as much as the information that you got. And any good school should do that, because in the world we live in now, there are millions of people trying to tell you that they know what they're talking about. And unfortunately, if that were the case, if millions and billions and billions of people knew how to make a lot of money, we wouldn't have needed stimulus checks. And I'm not saying that to be facetious. I'm being honest, because everybody that says they're in a certain position is not. I'm very honest. I'm an entrepreneur. I've done the research, I've done the work, and we're practically putting it together. That's where I am. But a lot of people are going to tell you they're here and they're not. And they're going to give you things that you're going to build on that's going to be a shaky foundation, and then it's not going to be sustainable long term. So always consider the source, no matter what it is, right? We could use the vaccine, vaccinated, non-vaccinated. If you don't have the right information, how could you make an informed decision about whether you should be vaccinated or not? If you don't trust the person that's giving you the information, then how do you make a decision? You can't. You can't make a great decision. You can either pause and to make no decision is making a decision as well. Just to say I'm not going to do it without fact finding, that's a decision as well. But it's not informed because you don't have all the information. Now, if you have all the information and you say no, my man, my woman, that's the way you do it. But if you have all the, and vice versa, if you have all the information and you say yes, my man, my woman, that's how you do it. But to make it on limited or false information is the way you get into trouble. And that's the way a lot of businesses get into trouble. And that's why a lot of businesses don't last. So you consider the source. Who's in your ear and what are they saying? Once again, this is Andrew Sims with the Sims Consulting Group. Consider that source, man. Peace.